All right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here talking to you about all things automotive industry, car guy hobby, cars, and everything gearheads are into. Tonight, this is the place to be. And I'll tell you what, guys, we got a special Thursday night episode. And tonight we're going to focus on Porsche 911 basics. So what I really want to talk about tonight are all those things that an automotive enthusiast, a car guy who maybe hasn't been exposed to the world of the Porsche and the Porsche 911, all the things that automotive enthusiast might want to know but was afraid to ask about the basics of Porsche 911s. You know, nothing for nothing, folks, and you know, 911 guys, hardcore Porsche enthusiasts out there, I think it's relevant to know that not everybody in our hobby is a super Porsche expert. Like Porsche enthusiasts, 911s in general, there's a lot to the history. There's a lot to the brand. There's a lot to the model line. There's a lot to know just about the 911 itself, which is, you know, sort of the icon and has been a performance icon for decades and decades. But for those automotive enthusiasts who maybe grew up focused on muscle cars, let's say, or American cars, or maybe you've really been focused on JDM and Japanese sports cars, or maybe you're a young enthusiast, maybe you don't know much about Porsche. And I'll tell you, it can be a bit intimidating. So what I want to give you tonight, and full disclosure, guys, I've owned several Porsches, but I don't claim to be the master of all Porsche enthusiasts. So 911 guys out there, hardcore Porsche guys out there, like and subscribe. Leave me your comments based on some of the feedback that I share for the new Porsche 911 enthusiasts. Those everything you wanted to know about Porsche 911s, but were afraid to ask type things that we're going to talk about tonight. But also, you know, the spirit with which we're pursuing this is, if I'm a car guy or an automotive enthusiast and I'm getting ready to walk on a lot because I want to look at Porsches. Maybe I'm thinking about 2024 is going to be the year that I get into the world of Porsches. I want to get my first Porsche 911. What I'm going to give you tonight are sort of the basic things that you should probably know before stepping on the lot. The basics of the model line, as I see it. All the things that I didn't know. I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you a story on your buddy CJ. I grew up as more of a muscle car, performance car guy in terms of American cars, Camaros, Corvettes, Mustangs. You know, that's the heritage with which I grew up as a young man in this hobby. And Porsches were like super rich guy cars at that time. I'm just being blunt. Real talk tonight about Porsches and the brand. You know, lawyers, doctors, super rich businessmen. You know, when I grew up, that was, you know, my perception, probably the perception of a lot of other young automotive enthusiasts at the time. Where I grew up in the United States as a young automotive enthusiast anyway, you know, the Porsche brand had a certain cachet to it, which it still does, but was also very much of a premium brand and an exclusive brand, which it still is, but it certainly now has gotten much more pervasive appeal. And the reality is there is a Porsche for everyone now. Whether it's a 911, we're going to talk about some options there. There are Boxsters, there are Caymans, there are SUVs available. There are also super elite, super hypercars that are Porsches. But really the purpose of tonight's episode is really to talk about Porsche 911 basics. Get your feet wet. Get your feet wet, guys, in Porsche 911 basics, the way your buddy CJ sees it. So let's get right to it. So, guys, I want to show you this car because it all kind of starts here. When you're talking about Porsches, there are a few things that I want to get into. First things first, the model lines for 911s. There's the Carrera family, which we're looking at a base Carrera here in this photo. This is the latest generation of the Carrera. Super sharp looking car. It's got all of the classic lines of the 911. Look at those headlights. You know, the engine, it's a rear engine car. It's got that horizontally opposed boxer engine, that flat six engine. You know, all of these terminologies represent what that engine is. You know, the engine is out back. It sits lower in the car, lowers the center of gravity. The engine has moved forward over the years. So, you know, you get closer to mid-engine performance, dare I say, in terms of handling characteristics than you used to with the older Porsche 911s, but it's still considered a rear engine car. So there's that. We talked about the Carrera line. We're also going to talk about the Targa line, okay, which deals with the top. We'll talk about that, a power retractable hard top, okay. There's the turbo line, the turbo cars, and the Turbo S. There's also the GT cars, GT3, GT3 RS, GT2 RS. These are track-focused cars. But let's talk about this car, the Carrera. In my view, this is about as close to what the 911 originally was, as sort of the pure driver's car, the enthusiast's car, as you're going to get in 2024 for a 911. The 911 Carrera, if I had to summarize this car, I'd say less is more. Less is more. One way to look at it is it's the entry level. I hate that phrase, right? The entry level 911, but it's so much more than that. It is so much more than that. Incredible performance out of this car. I always say, be careful when you get into 911s because I want you guys to go drive one of these. If you're thinking about getting into the Porsche 911 realm, go drive a Carrera, go drive a Carrera S, test drive it. And for the sake of tonight's discussion, I'm really focusing on anything in the past 10 years. I'm not going vintage Porsche. Let's not talk about vintage Porsches tonight. That's a whole other topic and a broad and deep topic. But I'm really talking about stuff for the past 10 years that a car enthusiast might want to buy and actually drive regularly. You could daily these cars. But, this car, this Carrera, you're talking about 350, 400 horsepower, something like that. And initial reaction might be, well, that's not big power numbers by today's standards. And it's not. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, write it down, take it to the bank. Your buddy CJ is here to tell you that Porsche horsepower is greater than other automotive manufacturer horsepower. I don't care if that's controversial. I'm telling you like it is. These cars punch above their weight. An equivalent Porsche 911 Carrera, if you compare that to bigger, heavier cars with more horsepower and superchargers and all this, yeah, Porsche 911 is probably going to smoke it or at least hang with it. It's incredible how fast and quick these cars are, how well they handle. And I'll say it again, a Porsche will ruin you for other cars, including this one. I would strongly recommend if you're looking to get into a 911, and again, the assumption is 2014 through 2024, seriously consider a nicely optioned Carrera or a Carrera S, which we're going to look at in a moment. These are fantastic cars. They can be had. You can get into a Carrera, probably one that you'd want with some nice options, something a bit older, closer to 2014, 2016, somewhere between 60, 80 to 100K. The newer you get, obviously, the more expensive, lower miles, more options, up to and including, you can spend 100, 120K for a new to newer one. I should say not necessarily brand new. They are out there. But I'd say the upper limit for a Carrera used, fully loaded with the options you'd want, somewhere in that range. Let's say 60K to 120K, anywhere in there, depending on where your budget is, you can find a super nice Carrera. And you will love this car. And it's a nice entree or entry point to the brand, in my opinion. My first 911 was a Carrera manual car. And I loved that car. That was a driver's car. It was basic 911. And it was an enthusiast car. You got in that car and it just had a modernized look and feel of a vintage 911, in my opinion. And a lot of people share that opinion when they saw my car. And externally, again, less is more. It was understated, but you got those classic Porsche lines. It's not an in-your-face car, but it is a fabulous driving experience. It's not the fastest Porsche, but it will punch above its weight. And you will love this car. And what I will tell you, it's almost a gateway drug. The Porsche 911 Carrera is a gateway drug. It's kind of like, someone goes out and buys their first Harley Davidson and it's a Sportster. And inside of a year, they want to go with a Softail or a Fat Boy, or a big old bagger, a Road King. Porsche 911s will have a similar effect on you. You will love your starting point, your 911 Carrera. And within a year, you're going to be looking at Carrera S's and GTS's and turbos. So again, I don't think you'll ever regret owning one of these cars. I know I didn't. They're just wonderful. But let's talk about the next model, the step up, if you will. All right, having fun tonight. Let's look at this together, guys. I hope you're having fun too. So, what we're looking at here, guys, what we're looking at here is the Porsche 911 Carrera S. Now, between this car and a base Carrera, there is what's known as a Carrera T. And that's something that came out over the past few years. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it tonight, but it's sort of an interim step from base Carrera before you step up to this, which is really your first big performance bump, the Carrera S. There is a Carrera T. So again, there's a Porsche 911 for everybody, but we won't talk about the Carrera T as much. This one, the 911 Carrera S. Guys, I would strongly recommend, as much as I love the Carrera, if you can afford it, and again, if we're looking at Porsche 911s from that 2014 to 2024 era, 991 generation, what's known as a 991.2, 992, this is all Porsche speak for different generations of the 911. They apply a numeric indicator. If you look at the Carrera S, it is a significant bump in performance above the 911 Carrera, okay? Whereas you could get into some of that buyer's remorse with a 911 Carrera, because anything a 911 Carrera can do, a Carrera S can do a bit better. In some cases, significantly better in terms of performance. And the styling cues are a bit more aggressive. And there's a bit more, dare I say, street cred in the 911 community with the Carrera S. Again, they're all fantastic cars. And if you found a fantastic, perfect, wonderful Carrera, the right color, the right options, the right mileage, still under warranty, what have you, buy that car if you want it. But what I'm telling you is, look at the Carrera S. And if you're a performance enthusiast and you really like that extra oomph, you might want to look at your Carrera S options, because that's the one in my mind that really takes the first considerable step from a performance standpoint. And candidly, I don't mind telling you, in my book, this is the sweet spot in the line, the Carrera S. This, to me, is the perfectly balanced Porsche. I'm not saying it's the ultimate Porsche 911. I'm not saying it's the fastest Porsche 911, but it checks a lot of boxes, and it is in a sweet spot where this car just does everything better than almost anything else. I'm serious when I say that. This Carrera S, whether it's a two-wheel drive Carrera, rear drive, or the 4S, which is the all-wheel drive version, you can get these with rear axle steering. This car will wow you in performance every day. And oh, by the way, you can fill the front trunk up with groceries, and you got a back seat. So to me, this is the sweet spot in the range, the Porsche 911 Carrera S. This car has an absolutely incredible performance. You know, you look at the 0 to 60 time, you look at the quarter mile time. I mean, the car is just absolutely insane in every way. And again, another car that punches above its weight. You might look at the specs on paper and say, wow, it's 450 horsepower, whatever. It's not that overwhelming. Yeah, look at the quarter mile time. Look at the lap time in these cars. Like, look at the 0 to 60 time. Porsche has magic in its engines and in its drivetrains. Write it down, take it to the bank. Your buddy CJ said it. Porsche has magic in its engines and drivetrains. Porsche horsepower just count more than other cars. And of course, I'm being a bit funny, but these cars are lightweight. They are engineered superbly. You got the weight over that rear axle, that rear engine. They dig in, and they bite, and they go. They launch ridiculously. Launch mode in a Carrera S will be one of the greatest thrills you've had in a four-wheeled vehicle. I'm just telling you like it is. Now, of course, it's not the fastest. We're going to talk about the turbos and the Turbo S's. Of course, those cars are rocket ships with four wheels. A bit faster than this car, no doubt. But this is a sweet spot. If you want the best of all worlds from a Porsche 911, you kind of have to consider the Carrera S. Everything I said about the Carrera applies to the Carrera S, but the Carrera S has better performance, higher performance, incredible cars. You will love this car. Next step up in the Carrera line, we have to talk about what's known, guys, as the GTS. So here is a Porsche 911 Carrera GTS. So what are we talking about here? What this is I would categorize this car as an interim step between the Carrera S and GT cars. We're going to talk about the Porsche 911 GT cars in just a moment. Those are track focused machines, track specials, if you will. They capture the best of engineering and evolution of Porsches, fit for the track, but can also be used on the street. So that's the GT cars, and they've run wild over the past decade. The demand for them has skyrocketed. They've become the favorite for so many enthusiasts. But this car is a nice, dare I say, a compromise, because it's not really a compromise. The GTS is a very cool spec. This also is another enthusiast spec where, you know, people who see it know you don't want, dare I say, the big massive wing and that harsh track look and feel from the GT3, and you don't want to pay the premium for the GT3, but you want something that's a little hotter and a bit more aggressive than a Carrera S. The GTS is your trim. The GTS is a very cool, high performance trim. You're talking about a car that does have higher performance than a Carrera S. But again, you're going to pay a premium for this car. So if we're talking about Carreras, 60 to 120K, by the way, Carrera S, let's say 80K to 150K for a newer model. Again, 2014 to 2024. For a Carrera S, you're going to be into the mid hundreds. That is a six-figure car for a newer model. And same thing applies to the GTS. For a 2014 through a 2024, you're looking at like 90K to 180K. I know there are cars that are a little bit less than my range I'm providing you with. There are cars that are probably a little bit more. But what I'm talking about is the sweet spot. If you want to get into a 911 Carrera GTS, which is a very cool automotive enthusiast 911, with some track credibility, with higher performance than the other Carreras in the range, go with the GTS, but you're going to end up shelling out more. Unless you get a higher mileage example, you're looking at a high dollar car here. You're starting to get into higher dollar 911s. They're all expensive cars. They all have fantastic performance, which is why, again, I say there's not a bad play in the Carrera line. They're all fantastic. Don't let anybody tell you different. Go drive them. You go and drive these cars, even if you're a hardcore Japanese performance car enthusiast or a muscle car enthusiast, you will walk away from that with at least saying mad respect to the 911, because it is a fantastic car. These cars will ruin you. I say it all the time. The 911 will ruin you for other cars. They are that good. And again, maybe you'll drive one and you still won't go out and buy one. I'm not sitting here trying to convince you to. What I'm telling you is it may change the way you think about German cars and about Porsches if you haven't driven one, and about horsepower and torque and numbers and specs. The 911 will turn a lot of those things on their ear. It will change the way you think about performance cars. They are that good. The experience is that incredible. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. So that's the GTS. Guys, next we're going to get into another car here we'll look at together that you should know about as you begin your Porsche 911 journey. Okay? Look at this thing. Here is a very cool Porsche 911. This is a Targa. So what the Targa does is it refers to that automated convertible hardtop. You can see right now with the top down, if you will, with the top retracted, you've got all that glass out back. You've got that bar, which is kind of a throwback to the Porsche 911 Targas of yesteryear, decades long ago. But you've got that open air feeling without the rag top. You know, I claim the cabriolet, that's Porsche speak for a convertible. You know, you lose something in styling, in my opinion. And I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of you Porsche enthusiasts feel the same way. The Targa, though, is a really cool and interesting option. They are scarce. This is not by any stretch the most popular 911. It is unique, and there is a cachet to it. It's available in various trims. You can get a Targa, you can get a Targa 4S, you can get a Targa GTS. These cars, again, you're going to spend a premium. This is going to probably cost you more than your average S or maybe GTS money. It's somewhere in there, but you can find these cars 2014 through 2024. Again, they're not cheap. You're probably looking at that 90K to 180K, a little bit more, a little bit less. But these cars are super cool. And if you've ever seen one, go check one out or check out videos. When you see these and someone hits the switch and that Targa top retracts, it's a power top. Guys, it looks like the Transformer. It looks like a Transformer more than meets the eye. It is that cool. The engineering and technology that goes into the Porsche 911 Targa top, that power retractable top, you're the coolest kid at school with one of these. These, again, are incredible cars in their own right. It's a bit of a different vibe. It's a different thing. Again, we're starting to get into expensive Porsches and sort of unique Porsches. Targa, if you've got the budget for it, you want something a bit different, and you want that, hey, I can hit the button, the thing transforms, that hard top, retractable top. It is one of the coolest cars on the road, So, okay. Now we're going to take sort of a quantum leap. Are you guys ready? I'm ready if you're ready. Your buddy CJ says, I'm ready if you're ready. So what are we looking at next here, guys? Let's take a big step in performance. So now we're getting into big dollar Porsches. Okay, these are high dollar, what I'll call executive level Porsche 911s. What do I mean by that? You're stepping up to, to use an old term, the top of the line Porsche 911s. So this is a Turbo S. You've got the Turbo and the Turbo S line. What do you need to know about that? First of all, and we're kind of talking about some Porsche basics. Almost all Porsches commercially right now, the 911s are turbos. Not all, but most of them are turbo. That flat six, horizontally opposed boxer engine with twin turbo. Turbo, think of that as a trim level now, okay? So you say, well, wait a minute, the Carrera and the Carrera S are turbo, CJ. Why is this car called a Turbo or Turbo S? It harkens back to when they first came out with the turbos, and that trim level, that badge, that 911 Turbo and 911 Turbo S, they've stuck with it. There's a lot of equity in that badge and that trim. So this is the Porsche 911 Turbo and Turbo S trim. And it is what I categorize as the executive level Porsche. It is also the fastest. Generally speaking, the turbos and the Turbo S's, forget about it. Lights out. We are talking about straight lines, some of the fastest cars on the road. If you look at, it was either Road and Track or Car and Driver with the latest generation, what's known as the 992 Turbo S, they did a quarter mile sub 10 seconds. This is a sub 10-second quarter mile car, the Porsche 911 Turbo S. The 0 to 60 is closer to 2 seconds than it is 3 seconds in a Turbo S. We're talking about one of the fastest cars on the road, straight line. So if you have means and resources and you want to jump into deep water with the Porsche 911 line, look at the turbos and the Turbo S's. What's the difference? The Turbo S, like this one, a bit more extreme, a bit more high, I should say significantly more high performance. Okay. The Turbo, I'm going to say something right now, and it may be unpopular, but I got to share it. Like the Turbo, when I was a kid, and for many years, even after I was a kid, I always considered the Porsche 911 Turbo like the dentist's car. When I think about years ago, that was the Porsche. And by the way, all love to my Porsche 911 guys who have a Turbo. I'm not hating on you. I love you, and I love your car. But, it's the point being is that, that is what you would typically, dare I say, stereotyping, an executive who can afford the best of the best when they look for a 911 at that time. And even to this day, many of them are choosing turbos and Turbo S's. The Turbo S is for the buyer in that market who needs the ultimate in performance. Nothing's faster. Forget about it. A Learjet or a rocket ship is faster than a Porsche 911 Turbo S, but not much else. What I will say about this car, and it's super important to note, It's super important to note, and I think Porsche guys, you may not want to hear this. So, Porsche guys, cover your ears because I'm about to say something that may offend you. You know I love you. But in all seriousness, your buddy CJ is going to tell you, for those of you who are new to Porsche 911s, that if you sit in a turbo or a Turbo S and then you sit in a Carrera S, there's not a lot of difference. And you might say that for a lot of different cars. But what I want to tell you is the styling cues, the interiors, okay, those things are consistent across a lot of Porsches. And if you look at the Carrera S with its performance, and then you compare that with a turbo, you kind of you say to yourself, I think that Carrera S is probably, my best bang for the buck for super high performance without stepping into the turbo realm. Because the turbo realm, what it's going to do is give you the best of the Turbo S, and it's just going to turn everything up to 11. It's that much faster, and it's got other nice amenities to the car in other aspects of styling that are unique to the Turbo and Turbo S, but there's a lot of similarities in the cars. What I'm telling you is there's a lot of similarities across the line, particularly with the Carrera S. When you step into the Turbo, the Turbo is really for the enthusiast who has to have no compromise, the fastest and the top of the line. And then you step up to the Turbo S when you want to go above and beyond that. So again, I draw the line. I say this is the executive level. This is the high prestige element of the Porsche 911 line. It's the gentleman's rocket ship. That's one way to categorize a Porsche 911 Turbo or Turbo S. Tell me what you think in the comments. Again, these can be big money cars. One more thing I'll say about that. You're probably talking, guys, you can get one of these 2014, closer to 2014, 2015, 2016, 120K is your starting point. You're going to go up from there. And for a more modern version of a Turbo S, yeah, you're looking at 200K. 180, 200K, 170 for the latest generation, and something a bit more fully optioned, you're 200 to 300K. Like this is again, high prestige, executive level car, super expensive. And for, the automotive enthusiast who has that disposable income, that DI, disposable income, and who wants nothing but the best, the top of the line. That's really what your Porsche 911 Turbo and Turbo S are. Guys, let's take a moment to talk about the GT cars. So, what are the GT cars? When you step up from the Carrera line, the Targa line, I claim there's kind of two roads you could take. One is sort of that executive high prestige Turbo or Turbo S. The other direction you can take, the left-hand turn, if you will, is to go with a GT car. This happens to be the latest generation Porsche 911 GT3. This is the one with the track engineering. This is a track beast. All the best of decades and decades of Porsche racing, technology, track experience, engineering has gone into this car to make it the ultimate performance Porsche for the track. The Turbo and the Turbo S, nothing's faster straight line, including this car. It's just not faster. The Turbo S will smoke this car. I say smoke it. It's going to beat it in the straight line. But where this car really comes into its own, the GT3 RS, is going to be in the twisties. It's going to be on the track. It's going to be in the mountains. This car is an extreme Porsche, okay? Whereas if you want sort of that executive level, gushy experience with all the amenities, you go Turbo or Turbo S. That car, you are wrapped in all the luxury you could possibly want. Not so with the GT3 in general. You can get racing seats in these cars. They are louder, less soundproofing. Weight savings are huge in GT3s and GT3 RSs. They are intended for the extreme auto enthusiast who wants that track experience. A lot of these cars see track time. A lot of guys with GT3s, GT3 RSs, they go into the track. These guys drive their cars. And that's not to say you couldn't have one that you just enjoy in the streets. Plenty of guys do, but you also have to be up for more of an extreme experience. Guys, I'm also here to tell you that now you're talking about super special Porsches. To get into one of these, you can get into like a 2014, 2015, you're probably at about 140K. So we're talking about big money cars. These are six-figure cars all day long. Something with a bit higher mileage, out of warranty, you could get into. They're highly desirable. They're all highly desirable. So you will pay a premium for these. Okay. If you want something a bit more modern, it goes up from there. The 991 generation to the 991.2, that's a big jump. You're probably looking at 170 to 180 up to 200K for one of those. The right car with the right options, lower miles. You can spend a lot on one of these. Then the latest generation, which is what we're looking at here, a 992 generation, whether it's, something 2024, 2023, if you can find one, you're looking at, 200K plus to 300K car, anywhere in there. They are scarce. They are desirable. So again, absolutely incredible cars. You will not regret having one of these cars. They are aspirational though. They are for the enthusiast who has that disposable income, for the enthusiast who's also into that track-focused car. And look at the wing on that thing. Now, you can get the version of the GT3 without the wing. Again, that's a bit more of an enthusiast car. You're going to pay a premium for it. You actually pay more of a premium generally for the one without the wing. Kind of interesting. But this is an extreme car. Extreme in experience, extreme in performance, extreme in drivability. And dare I say, every aspect. This car will elicit a response from anyone who sees it. It is not under the radar. Remember, we started our discussion on these 911s, and we said one of the principles in my experience with 911s is kind of less is more. And I think that applies everywhere across the 911 line, right up and through the turbos. When you get to the GT cars, more is more. Everything, forget about turned up to 11. These cars are turned up to 12. Trust me, I've driven these. I've always got my eye out for a nice 911 GT3 or GT3 RS. They are just the ultimate track-focused 911s. Now, that's a bit of an overview on the 911 line. I do want to, and by the way, guys, it's not meant to be an exhaustive list. There are tons of other 911s and other trims that we didn't talk about. There are special editions. But again, beyond the scope of this podcast episode, where I really just wanted to talk about sort of 911 basics, everything you always wanted to know about Porsche 911s, but were afraid to ask. I really wanted to kind of get your feet wet for the enthusiast who didn't know a lot about 911s and share a few things with you. Porsche also, the other thing I want to let you know, and this happens to be the 918 Spider, Porsche has a heck of a lot of other cars, supercars over the years, over the decades, one-offs, just ridiculous cars. This one being that hybrid 918 Spider. Look at this thing. This is an extremely exclusive car, but also represents, sort of the peak of engineering and innovation for Porsche. That's what they're known for. But the cool thing about Porsche that any enthusiast will know over the years, and any 911 enthusiast in particular will tell you, is that when Porsche comes out with these innovations, going all the way back to like the 959 in the 80s, they will bring those innovations into the 911 line. So a lot of the really cool new technologies, suspension stuff, transmission stuff, drivetrain stuff, interior design cues, they will harken back to really innovative state-of-the-art cars, such as the 918 Spider that Porsche came out with years ago. And that's one of the cool things about it. For example, when you get that GT3, you are getting the best of Porsche's design and engineering built into a car that you can drive every day on the road with a full warranty, and then it will destroy most other cars on the track if you know how to drive it. So, guys, that's a bit about sort of Porsche 911 basics from your buddy CJ. Again, not intended to be all things to all Porsches in an exhaustive academic dissertation on Porsche 911s, But I wanted to share a few basics for folks who are still getting their feet wet into what a 911 is and how you go about considering all these different models and trim packages. So that's about it on this episode. Thanks for joining. Love you guys. Let me know what you think. Leave me your comments. I'll respond to all the comments I can. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.